Miss Esther Murphy, she's on the phone with us this morning, and so she's gonna go over the Public Education and Corporate Affairs division with you this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can all hear me.
Good morning.
Good morning, we can.
Got your mask on?
Okay, so we're, as Jen said, I'm gonna review the Recycling Corporate Affairs division, which consists of three departments, public education, corporate affairs, and the unincorporated collection division. So I'm gonna start on page 62, beginning with the public education department. This department consists of our two recycling coordinators, who we know serve as the following authorities: educators on all things recycling, solid waste issues, environmental protection, you name it, they can cover it, they do a great job of doing stuff. Jan's already reviewed and discussed the various personnel-related increases, so I won't labor that point. This year, as in previous years, we've all tried to stay as close to our current budget with very minimal increases, and that is definitely the case with this department's budget. The most significant change in this budget is on page 63. Page 64. Under account number 2333, and that is the field trip account. We did decrease funding in that account by about $1,000 for fiscal year 22, and that's primarily because with COVID this year, we've had no field trips with regard to any school children. We are hopeful that in the upcoming school year, that things with the COVID virus and pandemic will hopefully have gotten better to the point where we can once again begin field trips. We just found out this week, we did a modified cost trash program this year, and we did find out this week with some persistence, because we can sometimes be persistent with things. But we posed a question to Horry County, or to the winning schools, if it was possible for us to come to the schools and maybe do an outside presentation to the winners, where they can still have their masks, we can all practice social distancing. We're outdoors versus indoors, which is always better. And we did have two of the three schools to agree to an outdoor presentation of their Talking Trash winning. So, we're doing baby steps, and we will definitely adhere to all guidelines, whether CDC or Horry County Schools. But we are hopeful that next year we can once again begin field trips. So we did decrease that some because we don't intend on it getting that much usage.
When are you
Other than
scheduling
that,
it?
with the other minor increases, that department's budget saw about a 6.8% increase overall.
Esther, Mr. Ives had a question for you.
When you're projecting to resume our field trips?
Mr. Ives, it will all depend on Horry County Schools and when they allow it.
Okay.
We stay in constant contact with them regarding field trips as well as regarding presentations that we would normally make inside a school, inside a classroom, things of that nature. Right now, everything with field trips or presentations are virtual, so we can still do those things virtually. However, we are definitely looking forward to the day that we can actually do these things in person too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so another question from public education. We're going to move on to the corporate affairs department. We're going to start on page 67. This department consists of the director of corporate affairs and administrative assistant and student affairs. Again, personnel services increases were discussed. We have definitely stayed close to reviewing all of our accounts, there was on page 68, there was a $2,000 increase in small equipment necessary, always dependent upon what small equipment purchases might be made during that particular fiscal year. The largest increase in this department this year was the 3105 facility M&R. We previously did not have this account set up in this department. However, we do maintain and manage the records building, which is between the administrative office and the scale house. There is a mobile building that we utilize for our records center, and it's also utilized for contractors whenever we have construction going on at the landfill. And this particular year, we needed to make some repairs to that building because the building is primarily used for corporate affairs and storage of certain corporate records. We needed to cover that cost. So this year, we did want to include some funding in the case of additional repairs or anything needed for that building. So that was the major increase in that division's budget this year. So overall, the corporate affairs department saw about a 2.8% increase also. Any questions here?
Esther's gonna review with you, I'm sorry, Esther, she's gonna review with you on the unincorporated collection system. I think most years we just kind of glance over it maybe, but of course this year, they are anticipating a discussion during the county workshop, for a millage increase to, be able to maintain this system. So I told Esther, I said that she could spend some time with it, kind of, talk about the budget, where their increases are and that kind of thing. I'm sorry, Esther, go ahead.
We're fine. Yes, the unincorporated collection system, just as a reminder, if I were somebody overseas the management of the unincorporated collection system on behalf of the county. And every year we prepare proposed budgets for their review, their consideration and also approval, which we've done so again this year. Jan mentioned that the county will be considering a millage increase. I know Mr. Gardner is there now, and we've kind of talked back and forth as well as had many discussions with David Gilreath. And if you recall, at our budget workshop last year, Mr. Gardner mentioned that even last year, county staff was proposing a 3 mil increase last year. That didn't occur, but that was what was proposed. The difference in last year and this year is, this year it has to happen. Something has to happen. What that something might be, we won't know until April when the county actually has their budget retreat. But something has to happen because over the past several years, this division, this fund, has been funded through fund balance as well as, and you have to say, thankfully, there was some FEMA money that assisted this in covering costs. But this year, it has to have some type of increase or even change in services just to stay with currently the unincorporated collection system. I know in speaking with Mr. Gilreath and with Mr. Garnell, county staff will be proposing a 2 to 3 mil increase, which again will only stabilize this fund. It doesn't lend very much to any type of growth. And I don't know if you want to add anything at this point or.
2 mil will maintain current operations. 3 mil would allow for some capital improvements based on the latest numbers we've got on the value of a mill.
Steve, let me ask you this. With that 3 mil, is it gonna be any money for that Highway 90 replacement sign?
3 mils will allow funds for capital. I don't know that we've identified specific improvements yet because we need to see how much money is gonna be available. We got some centers that need to be improved within their current site, and then we need others that basically have outgrown their location and we need a new facility, so. I believe the 3 mills would allow us to add a new facility every other year, based on the numbers we have right now.
Definitely need that one on 90 done, something bad wrong up there.
Yes, sir.
And I think we need a lot of them to be improved. I've had a lot of people in areas, and I've also seen in our area where they're just piling huge bags of trash there, and then the attendants having to put it on there, and other people waiting in, I think not in Soxtee, I can't remember the one over there, but I've been by because a friend of mine lives over there, and they're actually in line out in the street to be able to get in these, so there's definitely a need.
Where is that?
That could be a way.
Yeah,
Scipio Lane.
they're actually waiting in line out in the road, coming in, and so there definitely is a need for that.
And you got that at 90, and you also got it at Brooksville.
Yes, sir.
Got one at Brooksville that's busting its seams. I spoke to Mr. Worley about it, and he's well aware of it.
But I would like to say before you go on with that, the one at Red Bluff, the gentleman that was working Sunday, a lady had come in with a lot of stuff and big foam things had blown off and gone in the street. And he needs a pat on the back. He quit what he was doing and went out there and helped her in the middle of the street get on there, stopping traffic to get that out of the way for safety. So he really did a good job Sunday.
Okay, and we will, when we get a little further into unincorporated, I'll show you where that funding would be for the land improvement and those centers. Under the unincorporated collection budget, there's 3 different areas, and we're gonna start with the first being the, administrative, department, which begins on page, well, we're gonna start on page 71 this time. With just a review of the, staffing of that department. Currently, there are 4 positions listed there.
71.
A supervisor, and maintenance supervisor, and a heavy equipment operator. In what we proposed to the county, it's not shown here, but what was proposed and discussed with the county was the addition of, 1 trade worker position. And that position would be to assist the maintenance supervisor with maintaining both equipment and facility issues. This position was actually a part of this budget prior to fiscal year 2014. And fiscal year 2014, it was reclassified to a site because we were in desperate need of an additional site attendant, full-time site attendant. And the easiest way to do that was to reclassify that particular position. What happens without that position is we are more reactive to maintenance versus being proactive or utilizing a preventative maintenance program. On any given day in the recycling center, there are over 200 containers within the 24 centers. With one maintenance person, basically trying to keep everything running. And if we don't know, we can utilize a good bit of older equipment because of budget constraints over the past several years. And what was proposed is, and Mr. Gilbert concurs that additional position would be most useful and maintain a system more efficiently. So, I concur that every budget is trying to best to maintain all costs. This one, more so than any other, there was just minimal increases, trying to say 73, minimal increases to electricity and utilities like so. So with the exception of the addition of the 1 position, the increase to that department budget was 1.7%. If that position does go through based on what funding is approved in April, the overall increase will be about a 15% increase in that, area of service. Okay, the second area we're going to review would be the, actual recycling center budget, which is in on page 78. Look, on page 76, we have a list of the straight workers, the technical names, which is the side attendant. We have 13 full-time side attendants, and this shows 46 part-time positions. Our part-time number does fluctuate, due to our need to adhere to guidelines of the Affordable Care Act. So we do fluctuate with the number of part-time employees. But full-time employees are secured at 30 employees. On page 78, there's a line item for the again, not very many major changes. I will point out the few significant ones that were made. At the bottom of page 78, equipment maintenance, we did propose a $25,000 increase there. Again, we have probably close to 400 containers in our system, and our goal is always to maintain as long as the equipment can be maintained, and the costs have gone up, so we have increased that. If you turn to page 79, in the middle of the page, account number 2222, small equipment capital. It's a good increase there, at $9,200. Now, this year, we proposed putting security cameras at every recycling center. We do have cameras at a few centers right now. We actually revolve cameras around centers, depending on the car, what might be going on. But we do believe that there is definitely a need to have cameras at each center. To help with security, centers are broken into every single night. Sometimes, we are able to utilize our camera footage to hopefully result in a prosecution of someone who's stealing. We think it also helps with even maybe some complaints that we might get within recycling centers if we have some other evidence to utilize. With the increase in building maintenance and repair again, maintain the current facilities at the recycling center. And then an increase on the 3120 in fuels and lubricants. And that primarily has been advised that we will probably see an increase in the cost of hydraulic fluids this coming year. And we're trying to prepare for that. Overall, that's the part that saw about a 2.1% increase. Any questions there? All right, well, lastly, we'll turn to page 81. Just review the system cost for the unincorporated collection system. These costs include the waste hauling services that are used to move cans from the centers to the landfill and or MRF. It includes land improvement costs. Under land improvement costs, you see expand from where we center. We pay one center. That with site improvements would be things such as we have several centers that are in need of repairs to container pads. We have drainage repairs that need made at centers. Things of that nature. All of that falls under that land improvement cost. Equipment outlay would be just that equipment, whether it's containers, mostly containers for the center. This year, in June, the current hauler contract will end. We've worked with the county on the RFP for the hauler contract. They're in the final stages of that. In the process, I believe, of beginning some negotiations. So the pricing you see listed, for the hauling services is based on, the bid that was selected. And compared to this year's cost, it's about, not quite a 2.5% increase in the cost of fuel overall. However, where the increase is witnessed is, with the number of pools. Based on, historical trends and how we've done, we're projecting about a 6% increase in pools overall, through the recycling center. And that's truly because, there's an increased number of people in Horry County, especially those utilizing, the recycling centers. And we've seen this uptick, it was almost surprising last year, about this time, with the onset of the pandemic, to watch that number tick up, to double digits in some months, because so many more people were at home, doing school from home, working from home, whatever it might be. And instead of that way going, the direction of school or work, it was coming through home, which led it back to the recycling center. Those numbers have, as people have returned to work and to school, they have dropped back some, but they're still averaging over 5 to 6% increase as compared to the previous year. So we're anticipating a definite 6% increase. So overall, for the system cost, there was an 11.3% increase overall. Again, it's mainly due to increase in pollution and pricing. And unless you have any questions, that would be all I have.
Any questions for Esther or Mr. Gosnell on the unincorporated collection system?
Not the collection system, but the monies that we spend in the educational recycling kind, of system. I know we haven't had a lot of the school children and these kinds of education, but in this budget, and whether we need to put more there or not, to me, one of the main things that is going to, in the future, run this landfill has to do with the products that we are forced to process, because we can't pick and choose that. We have to work with what we get. And I think we need to continue to educate the school children coming up in there and doing all of that. But I also think at this point, we need to look at educating businesses on the products that we actually can handle. There are a lot of grocery stores now that have paper bags, right, and you can see them. You can ask for it. Used to, it was under the counter. And because of a lot of the interaction that has been had in this area, they now have those paper bags where you see it. There are a lot of takeout areas in these grocery stores and different businesses now that are compostable. They're not styrofoam anymore, they're not plastic, they're compostable. And this isn't just one or two places, it's a lot of places. So that tells me that these businesses are open to this conversation. We are, for decades to come, going to be running this landfill. The products that we have to work with is what is going to guide what we do, the money we spend, and where we're gonna go. So in the recycling area and the money spent for education, I would like to also see this done to educate the businesses, the grocery stores, and to work within that system. If we don't mandate or get mandates from the Senate and have bills up there to change this, and I think that needs to be, but I think it's going to be a longer process than actually having our two young ladies that do recycling spend or have someone to do another day to talk to the grocery stores, to take out places, to get them to purchase these, like a lot of the other places are, and to get them to understand where we are and what we do and how we can do that. It's not going to be that much more expensive for them at all, because like I said, all of the grocery stores now have the paper and the plastic. A lot of them have the things we compost and we can actually recycle. All of this is going to make us more efficient monetarily. It's gonna help us process things, and in the future, it is going to be that we don't have to have as much landfill space. And the money you save on landfill space, just like the project we're doing in the $10–12 million, is going to be a good thing. So I would like to see some of our educational money spent along this line, even if we have to allocate more money to do that.
One thing I want to bring up on compostable. What is marketed as compostable isn't composted here, and that's suggesting a process that we're not doing. Our composting programs are limited to the schools that participate at Coastal Carolina University. We do not compost anything beyond that. It would be nice if we could have compostable bins at our convenience centers. We should have that discussion. We also need to have discussion with stores. We don't want to curtail the alternatives to foam, but we're not composting the materials as they are compostable. But they will break down sooner in the landfill, so that's a positive thing. But they're not composted.
They're not, but there are products that can be, and I think those are the ones that we need to promote when we're going into these areas and telling them that they may think they're doing that, but really if they would change to this, it would work better. They're not going to know that. They're only listening to a salesperson. They're not going to know what they have and use, how it's going to mesh with our system, the system they use and pay for, unless we help them understand that.
I noticed if you go to Aldi's, you don't get a plastic bag or paper bag. You gotta carry your own bag.
Or use one of their
So
boxes.
you'll be carrying it out in your arms.
Costco, Sam's,
Yeah. I think that's a good,
yeah,
they're setting a good example.
yeah. Publix also has a sign now that says, don't forget your reusable bag to bring in. I think.
Don't forget your quarters.
Right,
Yeah.
I think the businesses that we have in this area, for the most part, will be very receptive to this conversation.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you.
The next area that we've got to take a look at, of course, is our capital budget. And as I mentioned earlier, with our capital budget, we prepare 5 years of capital budget. Of course, like I said, a lot of these items are, of course, our large equipment items, large projects, construction projects, various things like that, as well as those, what I mentioned earlier, those E items. It's anything over $5,000 goes onto our capital. These are items that we've actually go out on bid for, so that's what these items are. As you'll see on page 85 is our FY '22 capital budget. And this is what I'm primarily going to focus on as, like I said, this is the one that as we approve, as Mr. Ives said, as we approve the budget this year, we're approving the capital and operating at the same time. These would be the items that we would be allowed to make purchases of this year. They'd be the projects we would be able to get started on. Just a reminder, just because they are budgeted, just because they are in here and they are approved, doesn't necessarily mean that will happen. If you remember at the last board meeting, I gave a list of the items that we had purchased so far this year, and there was not even a handful of them. Again, staff looks at them, if it's something they can hold on to, push out for another year, they do. But if it's due to be replaced in this year, then they'll go ahead and put it in there for this year. But then as you can even see, as you look through this list, you can see a lot of them that say carryover, or it'll show the year that it was purchased. The first one, the articulated dump truck, purchased in 12. You know, obviously, maybe we had it on there for 10 years, but Like I said, more than likely, a lot of the equipment's on there for 5 years, 7 years. Most of the vehicles are on there for 7 years. I think we're starting to even increase those up to 9 years on some of the trucks and things like that. So we're definitely pushing things out as far as we possibly can. Like I said, I'm just going through, as you can see, there's a funding source listed next to these items. Anything with an A is what we purchased through our equipment replacement fund. That's the fund that we talked about earlier. As you saw in everybody's department, they had a line item for depreciation. And that's where that money goes. As that money's collected each year, it goes back to that equipment replacement fund for future purchases. Anything with a B next to it comes from our closure. And then, of course, anything with a C is for our general construction account. We have a general construction account, which is the roads on the landfill, buildings on the landfill. It's more like infrastructure for here on the landfill. And then, of course, those items with a D are landfill construction. They come from our landfill construction account. Now remember, like I said, some of these are closure, post-closure, landfill construction, equipment replacement. They have a funding mechanism, whether it be from the tipping fees themselves or, like I said, through depreciation. Anything with the E, there is no funding source for. Even the general construction account, there is no funding mechanism for that account. We transfer money into that account if funds are available. And like I said, I'll kind of show you kind of where we are with those accounts. If you remember last year, we actually talked about the general landfill construction account and the equipment replacement account, and the fact that both of those accounts, those designated accounts, they were getting low. And there was some concerns, as well as there were definitely projects that we were putting off. One of them, as you'll see on here, this environmental parkway road repair, $750,000. That was on there last year, and we had to take it off because we knew there was no way funding would be available for it. And like I said, there again, we put it on there as a possibility, maybe something that we may have to do this year, but in hopes that we can push it out another year. Just taking a look at some of these, like I said, we've got an articulated dump truck, a bulldozer, a trommel screen, and just to mention too, the trommel screen, I've got it on there for $370,000. I will be changing that to $375,000. That was a typo on my part. Like I said, I told Mike and all the staff, I said, look through this. If you see that I may have not put something on there, should have put something on there, this is the time to make the changes necessary. I think also, if I remember, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, on the wheel loader that we have on there, one of the wheel loaders for $275,000, we're gonna change that to $350,000, is that correct? And there was a reason for that.
So, we currently have 3 track hoes on the property. So we use one for, over next to the tire pile and anything done on this side of the landfill. We have one for our pits, and issues for the pits and the yard waste. And we have one up on top of the hill that's used to take the dirt off of the hill so we can keep filling it in. But when we go across the bridge and start digging on the other side, we won't have anything for yard waste to load our trucks with ground up yard waste. So our thought is that rather than buy another track hoe, we buy a wheel loader, a large wheel loader, large enough to load the off-road trucks, which will actually be faster loading because the bucket will be bigger. Because the track hoe will go over across the bridge and it'll stay over there. It won't come back. You won't be able to walk that stuff all the way back and forth all the time. So that was the reason I asked Jen for a $75,000 increase in one of the wheel loaders, which should have been purchased, bought in 13, probably should have been purchased in 18 or 19. And we still, I don't see them being purchased, changed out anytime soon, but we'll keep that loader, the 313 is the spare, and then replace it with a large loader to be able to load the off-road trucks. These loaders are small enough, they won't load the off-road trucks officially.
You say a wheel loader, you talking about the front end loader?
Yes, sir. Bucket loader, yeah.
Yeah, bucket loader.
So that was the thought process and the reason I'd asked Jen for that increase.
Taking a look, like I said, about midway, as you can see, we've got several projects. We have, of course, the Green Sea property delineation. That's been a carryover for several years. And we just, like I said, we continue to have it on there. Like I said, carry that forward. We have a compost pad expansion. The leachate wastewater treatment facility, again, we've been carrying that over from 2006. We put that in there each year.
Composting pad was something when we asked last year to increase the pad size because we was running out of space with all the food waste we were getting. But when the pandemic happened, we had all the engineering and stuff done and paid for, but we stopped the actual project to save the money, to hold on to the money because we didn't see a need in the next 12, 18 months for the food waste composting because it just dropped off. It fell off the map when the schools went away. We sort of stopped that and then re-put it back in the budget this year for that. But if the food waste was to happen to pick up, and we needed that additional space, we'd continue with that project.
I talked about some of these other projects, the leachate tank instrumentation and the level, I'll let you kind of go down.
So
this, give a little information.
currently, we have a leachate system that collects in the tanks, as y'all well aware of. We have to constantly monitor those by camera, even when we're not here, to make sure they don't overfill or we don't have an issue with them. If the cameras go down, which they have and been down for a week or two at a time, we have to climb the sides of the tanks and look in them. So we wanted to have an instrument system that would monitor those leachate tanks and would send out emails or texts when there's issues with them, rather than us relying on the camera or climbing the side of the tank. So that's what that is for.
Next one's the 1187 Borrow Area Historic Resources.
So there's an area inside that where we did the delineation and the wetlands delineation over there, there's an area that they identified as a possible Indian site. And we had the choice of spending, we got a choice of spending $5,500,000 to have a study done. But our decision was that let's leave it alone, let's fence around it and make sure we don't get in it. And, you know, if we dig anything, it'll be outside that fence area. So it's a small area, probably twice the size of this room or bigger, maybe an acre at most. Twice the size of this room, not accurate, but it's probably an acre in size. But we're gonna have to fence in around it. And our deal was to fence in around it and just leave it there. It's right beside Stair Swamp, not right beside it, but right at Stair Swamp. And they seem to think there's Indian pottery there.
Do you think we should let the universities in the state know of its potential?
They know it. They the one told us. They got us right here.
Perhaps they would do the research at their expense rather than ours.
No, they won't do that anymore. They told us right here, you can't dig there without one of them studies.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we're preserving it, so it would be nice for them.
Rather than us opening up Pandora's box, it's better just put them.
It'd be
Once you
nice
start
to get
digging,
the
you don't know what you'll
archaeology
run into.
And remove the.
But no, they were the one identified us, we didn't identify them.
The last one's just the Sanford Yard Borrow Area.
So, of course, we're looking for areas for soil. In the event something happened, we ran out of soil or something, and couldn't get across the bridge to get it, there's an area behind the SW6 building back over in that area that could be, permitted for soil, and mining. We put it in there as a stopgap, just in case something happened, we would have it, because if it's not in the budget, we can't do it if something was to happen. So if it was in the budget, at least it's there. You gotta realize that the money would only come out of that account only if it was utilized, so we don't plan to, utilize it unless we have to.
Do you have any questions on any other of these capital items that we have in the budget?
I've got one for you.
Yes, sir.
That Fargo unit,
Auger unit?
yeah. Didn't we kinda promised that gentleman here that night, we were gonna do something to try to help get odor down, is that what that's for?
That's a fogger that goes in the back of the truck that we
Yeah.
drive around. We have one now, but it's just about wore out, so if it was wore out, and that was up in our E,
Yeah.
I could go to Jan and say, this thing stopped working, I need to replace it, it's $15,000.
Okay.
We have a fogging system in place. We looked at a new type of system. Danny had talked to somebody or somewhere, and then I did some research on it and talked with the gentleman. The machine by itself was like $85,000, and then it was $60,000 a year for the, stuff to go in it, and you had to buy it from them because it was their machine. Currently, we do it for about $20,000 a year out of operating, so we just decided to stay with the system we had in place.
I was just thinking about that gentleman that was here that night.
That's to replace our current fogger in place. We're hoping that our gas system is gonna help us out here a lot. All indications, we're gonna collect that gas and a lot of that odor's gonna go away.
If you look on page 86, just to give you some idea, the E items that I keep mentioning are, of course, the want or need items. And as you can see, we've got a little over $1 million in E items. And of course, we only have 300,000 that we have available. That's why I guess I try to keep such a tight rein on those items. Like I said, they're there, if, you know, we run up on an issue of something that we absolutely have to have. And of course, as I do look at the transfers, if there's some funds available, occasionally they can put something, a request in at that point as well. So, like I said, there are a lot of E items that we continue to have to push out, but a lot of them aren't absolutely necessary, but they are there, they are in the budget. We do have some funding available for some of those items.
When you go back to page 82,
Yes, sir.
when you look at the summary pages of what capital budget projects, we're projecting heavy years. We're in one currently, projecting the next one to be almost as intensive as the last. And we're expecting fiscal year '23 to be substantially reduced.
And that has to do with our piggyback project.
Right. So I wanted to have a brief summary of our piggyback and where it's trending and where we intend to pay the most.
Well, we definitely, this current year that we're in and next year will be our two years that we will be paying for this project. Yes, sir. After that, like I said, after that, we have no funding in the budget in the out years for the project. So at that point, we should be through paying for it.
So we got $9 million in this year's for piggyback 3. We had, about $8 million in last year. So you take the $8 million and the $9 million coming out of this budget, and it should handle the project.
And we are anticipating wrapping it up in fiscal year '22, not '23.
Okay, I just want to briefly go over with you a few of the designated accounts, starting on page 91, which is our closure account. Last year, if you remember, when we were going through this, we actually had reduced it along, I think it was in FY '22, for the piggyback. We had anticipated having to borrow some funds from this designated account for the project. As you can see, I don't have that in there this year because you'll see when we get to post-closure, it's not necessary. We won't have the need to have to borrow funds from the closure project, or closure designated funds at all. Like I said, we were able to get the prices in on these projects much lower than we had anticipated, which has saved us quite a bit of money. So therefore, like I said, we're not anticipating borrowing any money from the closure fund at this time. If you go over to page 92, which is our post-closure, and remember, closure is the one that closure funds are the ones that we'll be using once we first close the landfill. And it'll be the first funds that are necessary. Post-closure are much further out. Those will be the last funds that we will be using to maintain after the landfill's closed. And as you can see, we have 8.5 million that we're anticipating transferring to landfill construction, for the piggyback. So I'm pleased with that. I'm pleased that we're looking at only borrowing from one fund. And we know that we'll be able to put those funds back. We have a funding mechanism in place to put those funds back into that account. So like I said, we feel very strongly about it and very comfortable with it.
We're also extending the lifetime of the facility, and that has an impact on
Yes, sir. Great.
closure and post-closure.
That's right. Yes, sir.
You can increase the volume of the amount in the landfill to fund those projects.
That's true.
That's right.
So that it should more than compensate for the expenditure.
That's right. Let's see. Take a look at one other account, which was over on page 97, which I had mentioned to you earlier, just that's just our general, landfill construction. And as you can see, like I said, this is where we had last year, taking out some projects and things because the funding had gotten so low. We were able to do a transfer last year that helped this fund tremendously. So I just, like I said, wanted to kind of show you this account. As you can see, you know, we don't anticipate it going below 1 million in this fund, which I think is great. And it still allows us to be able to do the environmental Parkway Road there if necessary. We're not anticipating doing it at this time, but if the funding is there if necessary. So I feel like our designated accounts are in a much better place than they were last year. Like I said, staff's doing a great job to watch their expenses, maintain the equipment. Like I said, I can't thank them enough. It definitely makes my job a lot easier, that's for sure. And definitely the direction of the board, allowing us, you know, to do the transfers, maintain the equipment as well. So, that is the budget for you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. As Mr. Knight mentioned, I'm here to sit down, to review with you, to, you know, go over anything that we may need to go over. I will be putting together some figures, of course, to give to Horry County, as they're preparing for their budget retreat as well. And I'm sure, like I said, even after the fact, we can still make some changes within our budget. We will have a public hearing in May, on our budget, once we get everything finalized. We normally do that around the 1st of May because we have to have it done before we actually approve the budget, which we normally do at the board meeting in May. So just to kind of give you a timeline on where we are. Like I said, get the preliminary figures together. We can still get together and meet. But my door is open if you need to sit down and go over anything. Like I said, any meeting you feel like we need to schedule, I'll be more than happy to do whatever is necessary. If there's anything that you feel like we need to change, we need to look at within the budget, I'd love to hear your direction on that. But we're more than happy to. I said, this is the time, and that's what I had told the staff. I said, as you're going through this, if you see mistakes, if you see changes we need to make, now's the time.
I want to ask the committee chairs, if you have projects that you anticipated having budget discussions within your committees. Pam, you had some discussion about some things in operations and planning. Do you have anything that you need to deliberate before the April 15th presentation to County Council?
I don't think so at this point.
Mr. Jones, the Special Projects Committee.
Yes, and the special project, we'll have a meeting, and we'll have that before the full board by this coming board meeting.
But they'll be deliberating on some potential impacts to the budget as it's been presented. Do any one of you individually have suggestions for any further discussions or any projects or other expenditures that aren't anticipated in what's been presented today? As staff has told you, they're willing to have another meeting if you think that's necessary. Do each of you feel confident that you have the budget explained to you in sufficient detail that you feel confident you can vote on the budget when it comes before us?
I'd like to say one thing, Mr. Chairman.
Please, sir.
I'd like to thank the staff for all the hard work they've done in putting this together. This is my first time being a new member, but they've really been helpful. They've asked a lot of questions. And like Ms. Jan said, the door is always open. I really appreciate that. Appreciate the good job y'all did.
Being the newest member, did you feel like you were filled in on the information that you needed?
Sir?
Being the newest member, do you feel like you
Oh,
were
absolutely.
informed to the degree that you needed to
Yes.
feel confident with this budget?
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have any items they would like to bring before this body? Jane, you've done a terrific job. And I appreciate that you do put staff through the paces when they make presentations to you, because you have the view of the whole. They have, of course, their own areas that they need to be responsible for, so they're going to be especially concerned about their area. But you have the whole authority to be thinking about how all of the expenditures will be covered by the revenue that we receive. And then we also have reimbursements that we need to be cognizant of too, and be good stewards of the projects that others need to reimburse us for. And that's an awesome responsibility as well, that we do that as efficiently with as low additional cost as we possibly can to deliver those services. And it's important that we be diligent on anything that we pursue, not just the things, our own expenditures, but others' expenditures that we reimburse for. We need to be good stewards. And I commend Danny too on what you've been doing on e-waste, concerned about our jurisdictions and what they're spending on that, to find the best way to deliver the services so that their reimbursements to us are maintained at levels that are affordable. Because we really do have that fear that one day we're going to wake up and it's going to be far in excess of what we have anticipated. Thank you, Danny, and each member of the staff for your diligence and the preparation of this. This is the most important thing we do all year. It's important each of us do feel confident. You've only had last night to review this. I'm sure there will be more questions. And if you bring them to the board meeting that we have at the end of the month, because that will be our opportunity then to make modifications before it's presented to council. And we have our public hearings, which will potentials also for modification. But the best information we have should be presented at that point. So we do want to have as much wrapped up as we possibly can before the board meets at the end of the month.
I think if there's any major questions, if we get those questions, we get you the answers, then we'll have the answers for everyone in the board meeting. And then we can all discuss it and make, get it approved. If we know it far enough ahead of time, if we can put some facts and figures together and answer your question. I mean, you may have a question that's already got an answer someplace that you didn't see or understand how it works. I know Vance will be here Thursday, and he'll be giving a presentation on the upgrade of the projects. And I feel sure that there'll be a financial side of that also. Got time?
We'll repeat it at the board meeting if necessary, but if each of you can make it to tomorrow's Operations and Planning Committee meeting.
No, tomorrow.
Thursday.
It's tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon, yes.
Tomorrow afternoon, 2:30.
2:30 tomorrow.
Vance will be here making a presentation. I will repeat it if necessary, but if all of you can make it to that meeting, it would be an opportunity for you to get a view of how our project's proceeding and a report from our engineer on its status. Anything else for the good of the order today?
The only thing I'd like to say, and I'm sure that Mr. Gosnell works with Danny Knight very closely, but we do an awful lot of work for the county. Is there anything you have a suggestion that we need to take up, look at, maybe do differently, or we can help you with it anyway?
Our biggest issue regarding solid waste right now is our convenience center, Fund 6, and that's really what we need to focus on, trying to get it back, or at least it can sustain itself, given the growth we're seeing.
It does need to sustain itself. You can't expect the board to come up, council to come up every year with additional funds.
I will
Good
say-
luck in that pursuit.
I will say that, I talked to Mr. Worley about the Fund 6. And, I had lunch one day with Mark Causey. I asked Mr. Knight, he come, and we talked to him about it as well. Kinda gave us the indication that he was gonna help us, but that's the way I left there with it. Mr. Worley also told me that he was gonna help us, so maybe the rest of council will get on board and get this thing rolling, because there's some areas in this county that, really need some help, and need it bad.
The county is the entity we do the most business with. We need to make sure their confidence in us is held in high regard.
I don't think that's a problem, and we've been telling council for the last 3 or 4 years that this was coming. Been able to hold it off, and actually the only reason we were able to this year is we got some FEMA funding back, reimbursed, so we use those funds, so, but there's not any more option. They're gonna have to cut the program, close centers, or fund the millage increase to get additional.
But this isn't the only area that needs that attention either. There are other areas that they're in the same spot. This is probably their highest priority.
There are other areas they want to see growth, in the level of service we provide. This is being forced on them right now. I mean, we don't have an option. They either got to cut service or fund it.
With the amount of growth that is being permitted to come in here, they're gonna have to provide a lot more of this, so I'm glad to see that they're looking at that. This isn't a problem that's gonna go away.
Nope.
And it's not a problem we're making, it's one we're trying to service, so.
And Fund 6 is still kind of hard to explain to some people. Fund 6 is the county, Odie County unincorporated collection system. We manage it. They pay for it on an unincorporated mill. And some of the council will say, Danny, we're gonna try to help you, help me on these centers.
Yeah.
It's not Danny's center, it's not the Solid Waste Authority's center, it's the unincorporated collection system.
We're merely
We
stewards.
manage. And, you know, it's, the growth, all you've got to do is look at what's happening between here and 905. Red Bluff's gonna catch, that center at Red Bluff's gonna catch it, cause it's a small center too. Number 9. And 90 is just, we in a race with Chick-fil-A on how many people you can get through a small parking lot in a circle. Brooksville is the same situation. A few years back, we did a study, Mike kind of put it together, and we took the Brooksville section. Brooksville operation, that'd be a good place because, it's kind of surrounded in a strategic area. And we looked at curbside collection for the Brooksville area. How we did sell to the state line to number 9, Little River. And, we took it to Mr. Worth. Show him the difference in the cost. What the convenience centers is costing. He said, my Lord, we can't put that on the people. Just wanted to let you know, because there's people out there saying, you can go to curbside and be cheaper than this, and we won't have to drive. Be more convenient, people will do more, but you can't do it, and that system is when you start cutting your county up into different locations for curbside. Everybody's gonna want Carolina Farms. But you probably have to split the county up into 5 or 6 different service areas to get, bids on. If you think C&D's been a battle in Overy County in 5 years, you go to splitting the county up into service areas and bidding trash collection, curbside. It's a good system, it's just, they haven't kept up with it.
Yeah, it's been 5.7 mils for 15 or 20 years. I mean, I don't know if we've had we actually lost a couple tenths with reassessment one year. So, I mean, there hasn't been a lot of revenue change. Yeah.
Thanks for being here, and if you got questions, call us. If you want to come in, a couple want to come in and sit down with us, we'll make the time available. We'll go through it, we'll come to you, we'll do anything we can do to get you comfortable in understanding what's in this book. But, you know, we got 2 years operation budget. That 1 year is the one you're really looking at this year. 5 years in the capital. So that whole back section is 5 years where we're really zeroing in on 1 year, basically. So we're here, answer the questions.
Very attentive. Thank you very much for being here. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Thank you.